Welcome to the report from Tugger Mountain, ladies and gentlemen. It's a freezing winter here in Melbourne, Victoria, and we have a new government, a new Labor government. It's a complete disaster. COVID-19, 1984, all that bullshit seems to be over mostly, so that's off it goes. So we're going to talk about that tonight on the report from Tugger Mountain. Alright, ladies and gentlemen, yes, we've had some wondrous activity and we've got some new reports here. I thought we'd do some. It's been a while since Tim came out and filmed some out here at my house. So, yes, we've had a federal election and what a fucking disaster that was, ladies and gentlemen. Pardon my French. You know, it wasn't good for the right and people on the new right, like myself, with a kind of Labor slaughter at the polls, and you know, a lot of the freedom parties failing to perform, and these kind of teal, you know, globalist backed, you know, teal candidates kicking out a lot of top liberals, so really decimating the liberal vote. So it's been a complete disaster. Now, I've obviously got my friend David Thrussell, who does, you know, his show, his All Out of Bubblegum show over at Cafe Lockdown. He thinks it's all rigged. Of course, the whole thing was rigged because he thinks the freedom vote was something like 30-35% of the population. And well, I probably agree more with someone like Joel Jamal, who's quite erudite on and analysing all this stuff. That really the freedom vote was about 15%. It didn't really do too badly, but one of the problems with the freedom vote is that it was, you know, I guess spread, you know, between various different people. Obviously, One Nation, United Australia Party, Liberal Democrats, and also various independents. You know, I had a lot of faith in Damien Richardson, and obviously there was Morgan C. Jonas, he was running. You know, none of these people really did well. It looks like Pauline Hanson's going to get up in Queensland as a senator. Thank God for that. And it looks like in Victoria, it is a bit of a rebel move, might send a UAP senator to the House. We'll have to. They're still counting the votes, which I might agree that there might be some rigging at this stage, I don't know, to stop some freedom candidates. But it does seem like the Australian public really did vote for the Labor Party, ladies and gentlemen. And really, you know, I mean, look, I mean, how can we explain that? I mean, I was no fan of Scott Morrison during the whole COVID crisis. I thought he sat on his hands. He showed little kind of national leadership, and he really didn't show much leadership also in some of the other national crises we faced the last 3 years, which was that's the one thing that started off the COVID nonsense, which was the bushfires. Not that it was connected. I hope it wasn't connected, but you know, there was the bushfires. He didn't seem to do a lot. He was on holiday in Hawaii. That didn't look good. And then there was the flooding. You know, he was making stupid comments and turning up, you know, like 1 month late to the flood. So I think, you know, he wasn't a particularly dynamic leader the last 3 years, and he really didn't do much to corral the or support people who have a kind of more what you would call traditionally liberal position or conservative position during the whole COVID crisis. All our rights went out the window, and Scott Morrison did nothing. So I guess it's maybe not surprising that you know, Albanese might have won. Do I think there was some rigging? There probably. I mean, I do think, you know, the globalists definitely wanted a Labor government, and for whatever reason, and I do think probably China was on the side of Labor because they would probably find them more friendly than a Liberal government. But was there any major rigging in the sense of like what we saw with Donald Trump? I don't think so. I think that, you know, Australians, let's be honest, are basically dumb, and that includes a lot of just people who just obey all the rules the last few years. They're quite unintelligent, whether they be from Australia or whether they be new immigrants. You know, people just like to, you know, get on with their lives. They took the jabs. Some people suffered what you call vaccine side effects, but it wasn't off the charts. You know, I mean, I don't know the exact amount of vaccine injuries, but it would have to be under 100,000 people. In Australia, I mean, that's still pretty serious in my opinion, and a good reason not to take it perhaps, but like, you know, people just got on with their lives, and they voted for more of the same, you know, more of, you know, basically they voted for a, you know, basically a federal version of Daniel Andrews, which I think sounds like a disaster. And so that's what we're in for, ladies and gentlemen. I thought it was a terrible result. The freedom movement, outside of a couple of little wins we had, a Keneally woman, she got ousted, which was kind of lucky. It was one decent result. Looks like Pauline Hanson's back. That was another good result. But outside of a couple of things like that, there wasn't much joy for us at this election. It was, I think, a Labor landslide. And there it is, ladies and gentlemen. Albo's pissed off over overseas and is running around. He went to one of these global kind of conferences first, and now he's off in Indonesia. But you know, I mean, I will say this. Albo doesn't, you know, as a person, from what you can see of him from the campaign, doesn't seem like a complete disaster. You know, he could channel someone like Bob Hawke, who was a man of the people, and he has that kind of background, and I don't know, I mean, I hope he does. I mean, maybe there is something to Anthony Albanese that's authentic, that he will try and fight some of the worst excesses of globalism, and they are already, you know, confronting China a little bit, you know, so they are doing some things very much like the Liberals were doing in relation to China. So, I mean, I don't know, I mean, you know, these parties, Labor and Liberal, they change every 5 to 10 years, and we just had a change, and that's all that has happened in Australia. It's probably not going to make that that much difference to your life. And I'm always reminded of a quote from my old friend Boyd Rice, who I made a film Pearls Before Swine with in the mid-90s. I remember I was upset about an election in the 90s, and he said to me, Rich, he goes, hey, you know, has your life ever really changed when the government has changed from, say, you know, a right-wing government to a left-wing government? I said, well, no, it hasn't really. Like, you know, basically it's the same life. He said, well, then why the fuck are you worried? And that's the report from Tiger Mountain.